I've always loved road trips. There's something freeing about them. Just driving, stopping when you like, and getting to decide where to go and how to get there. I don't even use GPS most of the time. I like getting to navigate on my own. Only, I guess I don't really have any choices left to make now. Now that I'm trapped here, I guess the next question is obviously where is here and how did I get trapped? I was about 600 miles into a trip up towards Maine, somewhere in the Rust Belt, Appalachia area, probably in West Virginia, more or less. It was dark and I wasn't sure if I had crossed the border or not. I stopped at an independent gas station for fuel and coffee. It was one of those places packed full of products and shelves and cases of drinks stacked on the floor along the walls. I was just walking out of the building, coffee in hand, when I passed a crusty old man on his way in. He thanked me for holding the door for him and warned me about a huge pileup on the interstate. He suggested I might want to try and go around it, save myself some time. I told him I'd see what I could do, but I wasn't from around there and didn't really know the roads and wouldn't want to get lost. He grinned at me and said it was a simple route. All I had to do was drive down the road a couple miles, turn left, go on about 20 minutes, make another left, and that road would take me to the interstate. Easy, and I would save who knows how long sitting in bumper-to-bumper traffic. I thanked him for the tip and said I'd give it a shot. I figured I was on a road trip, an adventure, might as well get off the interstate a little. I started on my detour as sort of euphoria coming over me. This sort of free form following directions from a stranger was kind of what I loved about road trips. Just down the road was the turn he described. I hung a left, rolled down the windows, and put on a podcast. It wasn't the most well-maintained road, but it was serviceable. One of those winding country roads with deep ditches on either side and thick woods obscuring anything more than a yard or so in. I got into sort of a zen state driving along listening to the podcast. It was a good episode about some hikers on the Appalachian Trail being stalked by a monster. When the episode ended, I tried to put on the next episode, but my phone didn't have any signal and I hadn't really planned ahead enough to download any ahead of time. I drove in silence for a while when I began to wonder just how long this shortcut was. The man had said it was 20 miles or minutes or something. Either way, I was pretty sure I had been driving longer than that. I wasn't sure if I had somehow missed the turn or if the man had underestimated how far it was. Decided I'd drive on another 20 minutes or so to make sure it wasn't just ahead of me, and then turn around and head back the way I came. Hopefully, if I had missed the turn, I'd be able to spot it on my way back, and worst case, I just go back the way I came and get back on the interstate and just deal with the traffic. I followed the winding road looking for a turn without seeing anything. When my arbitrary cutoff time to turn around came, only then did I realize that without anywhere to pull off, the only way for me to turn around was going to be a 3-point turn right in the middle of this little 2-lane highway. Given how winding and obscured the road was, I was worried about getting T-boned or something while turning, but then again, I hadn't seen a single car since I got on the road. Came to a stop, the lights of my little Civic forming an island of light on the dark road. Started the turn, nervous about going off the narrow highway into the ditch. As I came to the end of the first point, I guess you'd call it, right before I went into reverse, I saw maybe a few yards into the woods, a pair of gleaming eyes staring back at me through the darkness. They were fairly high off the ground, 10 feet, give or take, so I just assumed it was probably a raccoon. A big one, given how big the eyes were, and I didn't think much of it. I put the car in reverse and crept backwards, still worrying about the ditch. The last thing I wanted was to be stuck in a ditch at night out here without cell service. In the dim glow of my backing lights, I saw 2 more pairs of glowing eyes right behind me through the rear window. It startled me, but I didn't give it much thought initially. I finished my little maneuver and started on my way back, a little slower with a careful eye watching for anywhere to turn off. I flipped the radio on to fill the silence, but I wasn't picking up any stations, AM or FM. Even the static was subdued. I drove back the way I came for about an hour. I didn't see anything but the winding road and the woods. And once or twice, what might have been eyes reflecting the light back at me. I wasn't sure, since I was definitely driving faster on the way in than on the way back, but after about an hour, I started to get a little uneasy. I hadn't gotten back to the main road I started on. The turn onto this winding road was one I couldn't possibly miss. I should have come to like a T intersection of sorts. There was just no physical way to miss it without driving off the road into a field or a ditch or whatever it was. I started to hear odd noises coming from both sides of me, out of the woods. They sounded like some sort of cross between a coyote and a swarm of cicadas. I started seeing more of those eyes too. They looked almost out of the woods at that point, and I could feel myself developing a bit of a lead foot as I started driving faster and faster, eager to find the turn, any turn, off of there. Not long later, well, it didn't feel like long anyway. I noticed the clock in my car was frozen, not tracking time anymore. The only thing marking the passage of time or any sort of progress was the fuel gauge that was slowly descending, and my anxiety that was slowly, or more honestly, quickly rising. When I was down to about half a tank, the fog started to set in. Light at first, but by the time I was at about a third of a tank, it was so thick I couldn't see the tree line. At least with the fog, I couldn't see the eyes anymore either, but it didn't really do anything to obscure the strange howls coming out of the woods. At about a quarter of a tank, I started seeing figures in the fog. I passed by them only a foot or so away from the side of my car. They were accompanied by a foul smell, like organic rot mixed with propane or something. It's all the worse because as the fog got thicker, I found myself having to drive slower to stay on the road. I wonder, did the old man ever intend for me to make it back to the interstate? Did he? No. There was something in these woods. My fuel is running pretty low now, and the figures have taken a pounding on my windows with sort of inhuman speed or agility as I drive past them. I'm guessing fairly soon I'll find out what they'll do when I run out of fuel and my car comes gliding to a stop.